I'm Lucy and I'm one of the co-founders of Jumpstart Youth Theatre. Thank you so much for being here today and joining us for our very first episode of Ask an Actor. Ask an Actor came around because of my own experience of trying to get into this industry and having absolutely no idea where to get started. I remember being a teenager and Googling all of these profiles of these actors I really admired, trying to figure out the secret to success when it came to being an actor. Of course, from being in the industry now, I know that there's so many different ways to get started, but I knew none of those when I was a young person myself. So, we've brought together some amazing actors from our local industry and asked them their secret to success. We were talking about their journeys, drama school or no drama school, what age they got involved in it, as well as their careers now. What technique do they use, or how do they even learn lines? We're so excited to have you here on this journey with us. And first up, we have Jake Speer.
A sort of light bulb moment of, oh my God, I want to do that.
Influential teacher along with Shakespeare.
I was actually originally going to be a doctor.
The musicals is kind of where it started for me.
Really just took a lot of courage to be like, Mum, Dad, I'm going to do acting.
I knew that I wanted to go to drama school.
Yeah.
I knew that I was going to go to drama school.
And to be 17 and be able to just jump into the
world.
industry.
You have to root for yourself.
Yeah.
If I sit in a room long enough, I'm going to make something.
Unless you're like Meryl Streep, then you'll play like transformational characters.
Just Meryl Streep.
Sending a selfie to my mum saying, I've made it.
You may recognise today's Ask an Actor guest from our television screens. If you're a fan of Home and Away, you'll recognise the wonderful Jake Speer as Oscar Maguire, who captured Australia's hearts from 2013 to 2016. Jake is a graduate of the Regional Performing Arts School. He later attended NIDA, and during his training portrayed many great roles, including actor and audience favourite Richard in Shakespeare's Richard III. Between graduating from NIDA and signing on to Home and Away, Jake somehow found the time to produce, direct, write and star in documentary film Leeton, The Formative Years. Since then, screen credits have included feature film Backyard Ashes, directed by Mark Gretel, and television shows Drop Dead, Weird and blockbuster The Story of James Cameron. In late 2017, Jake made his musical theatre debut performing Kinky Boots for Michael Cassell, where he featured in the ensemble and covered the lead role of Charlie Price. Other theatre credits have included Ensemble Theatre's Barefoot in the Park and a regional touring production of The Government Inspector. Recent productions included the outrageous comedy Hand to God at the Alex Theatre and the musical Catch Me If You Can at the Hayes Theatre, for which he was nominated for Best Male Actor in a Musical at the Sydney Theatre Awards 2019. It's a bit of a list there, isn't it?
It's all
You've been
true.
a very busy man.
I like to keep busy.
Is there anything I've missed off that list?
No, I think you did pretty well.
We did pretty well
Pretty
putting it all
well.
together. Do you have a favourite from that list?
Do you have a favourite? Oh, I think Catch Me If You Can's got a pretty special place in my heart nowadays. That was a really special production. That was my first time at the Hayes Theatre.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful company. It was a really fun show and just a great part.
And that was your second musical theatre show ever?
Professionally.
Wow.
Yeah. But musicals is kind of where it started for me. That's the whole Wagga story.
And is this back in your regional performing arts school, which I don't have the name of yet?
Kringle High.
Kringle High,
Yeah,
great.
yeah, Kringle High in Wagga. That was kind of where it all began. I think my first show there was playing the Cowardly Lion in The Wiz. So I got a big furry suit and mane and everything. And no, I loved it. I started with singing and musicals and things like that. So to go back to that and do a show here at the Hayes, that was a real treat.
Yeah. So when you caught the theatre bug back in
Back in the day. Yes.
was it musical theatre? Was that the bug that you caught?
No, not really. And I get pretty jealous about people when they tell their stories of, oh, I saw this particular production, or I saw this performance of an actor, or this movie, and that was when I knew I wanted to be an actor. I can't really put my finger on a specific moment like that. But for me, acting is just, it's always been what I've wanted to do. I think my sister growing up was very frustrated with that because she didn't know what she wanted to do. She's like, oh, Jake he's always wanted to be an actor and that's it. And she was kind of floating around trying to figure out what she wanted to do. But you know, I mean, I was doing school choir in primary school. I was putting on shows at home and all this kind of stuff. And I think when I look back on it, there were definitely particular actors and particular films that were influencing me. You know, I've got really fond memories of sitting down and watching episodes of Mr. Bean, and Disney movies were a really big part of my childhood, and all of that sort of thing too. So I was a really creative kid, and I think from a very young age I loved performing, and it was something that I began to take very seriously. I come from a really sporting background, family, you know, a lot of footballers, a lot of sprinters and softball players, and you know, all this kind of stuff. And my parents put me in absolutely every sport that was available in town, and I was hopeless at all of them. And yet the whole time I was putting on shows at home and wanting to do singing lessons and play piano and all this kind of stuff. So it was always in the blood. And then it just got to a point, I think, around mid-high school or early high school, where I realised, oh, people actually do this for a living, and this can be a real thing. So what do I need to do to make it a real thing? And that's when I found out about NIDA, and that's when I started doing musicals in Wagga with the regional theatre company over there, and started to build that network of people and be surrounded by like-minded creatives that were sort of mentoring me through those early years of encouraging me to pursue a career as a performer.
Yeah, because I would say that for me, I found the arts probably and when I started high school, I found performing arts, but it wasn't until say year 12 that I was like, oh, maybe this is what I'll do. But for you don't really have a point like that where it flipped for you.
No,
it
was just always there.
Wow,
you know?
so like that, you know, that kindergarten dream of being an astronaut, for you that was an actor.
It was always an actor.
Wow.
Yeah. And you know, I was transcribing Rowan Atkinson's skits and transcribing scenes from, you know, Mel Brooks films, and then forcing my cousins and my sister to reenact them and make short film my own version of those scenes and play those characters and stuff. And it got to the point where I was doing singing lessons, I was doing local singing competitions, you know. As much as my father, I'm sure, would have loved to have been taking his young son around to, you know, all the football matches around the region, he was actually taking me around to all of the singing competitions around the region. But I was lucky enough to have really supportive parents that actually took me seriously, and they obviously could see something. They saw that it was something that I cared about and was passionate about. And I think as I started to progress into high school and started to think about life beyond high school, they were like, okay, well, I think this is something that we should be nurturing and encouraging. And that was when I started to make the move from the regional town where I was born, Leeton, to Wagga. And that was kind of the first big step for me in, I guess, activating my own career, my own path, because I never thought of myself as someone that would leave my hometown and leave all of my friends. But that's exactly what I did after I started to connect with the theatre companies that were working in Wagga.
And how old were you for this, do you think?
At this point, I'm 14.
Yeah, little baby.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm doing elective drama at school. That was a really big decision for me in terms of selecting the high school. I only had 2 high schools to pick from in my hometown, but only one of them was running a drama program. So that was it. My decision was made purely based on that. I wanted to be getting as much experience as I could. What was their drama program like? What was their music program like? And still, that wasn't enough. It wasn't a school that was doing regular musicals or anything like that. And because of my time during year 9 and year 10, I was auditioning and I was getting parts in musicals over in Wagga with a production company there, community theatre company. And they're doing big shows like Les Mis and Beauty and the Beast and High School Musical and all of those kind of, you know, big Disney musicals and stuff. That was the first time for me that I really fell into a crowd of like-minded people, and I really felt that sort of sense of community. And because there were people that was my age, but there were also people much older than me. And it was through that I met a theatre director in Wagga, who also happened to be the head of the drama program at Kringle High School, the performing arts school there. And they had just finished building their 200-seat theatre on the school premises. So that just lit up my world. I was like, wow, you've actually got a school that has a theatre, a purpose-built theatre. It's not a hall, it's not a room that also hosts all of your assemblies and stuff. This is a purpose-built theatre. And I was stage managing a show for him, a cabaret show, as a part of my work experience through high school. And he said to me, look, we're auditioning for our new school show, and we've got a real shortage of young fellas who can sing and dance and act. Would you consider auditioning for it? And I said, sure, I'll come over and, have a bit of a sing. So I went over to the school. He gave me the material. We did all the bits and pieces, and he gave me the part there on the spot. He said, great. The only catch is you have to come to the school. Well, that makes sense, of course. So I went back home and thought about it, spoke to Mum and Dad about it, and I just said, I think this is something that I really have to do. So I did. I packed up my bags and said goodbye to my mates and moved high schools, and I finished year 11 and 12 living in a boarding house in Wagga by myself, and doing 2 to 3 shows every year at school. And they had such a great drama program and a wonderful music program there. And I was finally getting the experiences that I wanted. I wanted to be up on stage. I wanted to be challenged. And I was surrounded by a cohort of students and staff that were all, and a principal that was all supportive of the arts and saw the benefits of putting on shows like that. So that was a real big shift for me, that move, for sure.
Yeah, because we talk a lot about the regional experience or the rural experience and accessing arts, but yours seems to be a really positive one. You really found a community in your... Yeah.
I think that was... I mean, obviously that... It all existed.
Yes.
It was all there, but I definitely had to look for it.
Yeah. It wasn't coming to you.
And I had people that helped me look for it, for sure. I wouldn't have found out about that whole theatre company in Wagga had it not been for one of my dad's workmates that came home and gave Dad a cut-out ad in the paper of like, hey, your young fella likes acting and stuff, doesn't he? Maybe you should audition for this. And that very moment is exactly what kind of put me on this path.
And what distance are we talking? What is Wagga to Leeton?
Wagga to Leeton, it's about an hour and a quarter, hour and a half drive.
Yeah.
140 odd kilometres apart.
And we're still talking, 3 hours out of Sydney?
Wagga itself, it's at least 4.
At least 4,
Four and a bit from southwest of Sydney. Leeton is add another hour and a half onto that.
Yeah.
It's south central New South Wales in the Riverina. It's about 2 hours north of Albury, which is on the Victorian border. It's a big food bowl. It's a big agricultural area. It's massive on sport. There's been some incredible athletes come out of that area.
And now some incredible actors.
And that's the hope,
Yeah.
because it's not for a lack of trying. There's some wonderful talent back there, and there's an incredible theatre there as well. And I think that really played a big part in informing my whole, dream or aspirations to living in a town with a beautiful 700-seat Art Deco 1930s picture theatre. Was just full of such magic, and I saw so many wonderful films there, and I was performing on that stage as a young person in the school choir and the local Eisteddfod competitions and all that kind of stuff. So I was surrounded by that sort of, what I call the magic of theatre and the magic of cinema and stuff. So my imagination was running wild as a kid, but it was a matter of really seeking it out, of going, all right, well, if it is something that I want to do, where can I get singing lessons? I was doing there was a drama club run out of Griffith, which is another small town about 40 minutes away, and I was doing that at the end of primary school. Mum would come and pick me up and drive me all the way over to Griffith to do something there. NIDA at that point was still doing their open program tours out to Wagga and Griffith, so I was doing some short courses there when I could.
And you were really leading all this, right? Not your parents. Like, your parents were just enabling, I suppose.
No, they were incredibly supportive of it, and they would back me and they'd drive me everywhere. I missed days of school because I'd be, Mum and Dad would be driving me over to rehearsals in Wagga, and I'd come back and the principal of my high school in Leeton would be like, oh, how's he doing? Is he doing all right? He's working really hard on this show. Maybe you could just take a day off. Just if you come home late at night, because we'd be getting back at 1 in the morning or something after 4 or 5 hours of rehearsing.
Yeah.
And go, no, take a day off, mate. So like the fact that I had teachers and principals and parents that were willing to support that, I'm very lucky. I don't think everyone really gets that kind of network of support and encouragement.
Or you see it the other way around, where it is the parent is like, do it.
Well, that's true, whereas I'm there trying to live through the kid.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I couldn't do it, but maybe my kid could.
Yeah.
Whereas it was the exact opposite for me. My dad was hoping, I'm sure, to raise a footballer.
Oh, right, supposedly.
Like, oh, okay, all right, well, we're doing this now. But they've loved it, and they've said to me so many times, countless times now, that, they've loved kind of learning about, what's possible in the arts and entertainment, and they've seen that growth, and their tastes have changed, and their tastes have been informed. I had a wonderful conversation with my dad not too long ago where he's like, I think I'm willing to take more risks now as an audience member because of some of the crazy stuff I've seen you do.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, no, what, I might give that a go. I might give that play a go. I reckon I could convince my dad to see an opera now.
Yeah, wow.
Maybe, I don't know, we'll see. But I think, their minds have been opened up, and I think they've really loved that journey too, because it's been a completely different world to what they grew up in.
So would they have seen theatre shows regularly before?
Rarely. I think Mum would be the most cultured, of my parents, because she used to spend quite a bit of time going back and forth to Melbourne, and every time they'd go down there, they'd see a musical or something like that. But it's that kind of stuff. They're not going to, cabaret festivals or indie theatre shows or things like that. They're going to the cinema, and they're going to main stage commercial musicals. But that's slightly changed now. I think they're definitely... they keep a keen eye out on who's doing what, and did you see such and such is doing this kind of thing. So I think they really like being a part of that.
Yeah,
that
that's
world
lovely.
Yeah.
I'm interested in when you were in year 11 and 12 and you were doing all of that really intensive drama stuff. Were you still... did you do was it called ATAR when we did it? Did you do that? Or did you go...
UAI, I think it was called.
The university entrance.
That's
exams,
right.
all of that stuff. Did you do that?
Getting those final marks.
Yeah. Or was it kind of like you knew what you were doing? And
much to my parents' concern, I kind of made it a motto of mine that I would not have a backup.
Right.
That I would not have a plan B. Because the psychology behind that, I felt at the time, was that if I had a plan B, I would subconsciously fail and fall back on it. So it's best to do the high wire walk without a net. I don't know if that logic holds up to scrutiny, but luckily it worked.
Yes.
Because it's true, I really didn't. I had every intention of just finishing high school and going to NIDA.
Yep.
That was the plan. I entertained the idea of going to Wollongong University, but it was really NIDA or nothing for me at that point in time. And I was all focused on drama and music. I was doing other subjects. I tried to drop maths as soon as I could, and I did. I didn't do maths in year 12. I was doing economics. I got a band 2 in economics. My ATAR at the time was 69.
Yeah.
I didn't even get 70 marks, 70 as a final kind of ATAR.
So you did it. You did the.
I did it. I went all the way through to year 12, and that was a given. I knew I was always going to go through to year 12.
Am I right in saying you actually can't go to NIDA without that? Can you?
I think they prefer you to have it. As far as I knew, particularly back then when I was going through, there were exceptions. But there was definitely a preference for you to have an ATAR, and I would wager that they're probably even more preferring of it now, simply because of how much they're connected to accreditation and the academic side, and working closely with UNSW now. I think they're really focused on legitimizing those kind of academic credentials for their students. So that's only an assumption, but at the time for me it was, I'll go through to year 12 because I knew year 11 and 12 was going to be full of lots of performance experience because of going to Wagga. But the whole academic side, it was never about book smarts. It was just like.
And particularly if you're going to have 1 a.m., you know, like.
That's right. I mean, I'm not a good studier. I was not a good studier. I was not overly academic. I was just.
You had to learn lines.
I could learn lines.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, for sure.
So, did you always know that you wanted to go to university? You were saying you entertained, like, for instance, if you hadn't gone to NIDA,
yes,
would it have been, I'm just going to go to Sydney and make it, you know, I'm going to get an agent and just do it that way? Or did you always know it was going to be, you know, NIDA, and then if I didn't get into there, maybe Wollongong, Performing Arts?
Because there was a time there before NIDA where I actually had an agent here in Sydney. It was for a very short period of time, and I only did a few auditions. But I think the idea of coming to Sydney and just living here and trying to have a go probably didn't really cross my mind. I think if I was going to move somewhere, it would be to move to study.
Yeah.
That was kind of what was in my mind.
Yeah.
Looking back now, I obviously know what's possible and what you can do, but I think back then for a 16, 17-year-old, it was like, if I'm going to move away from home, it'll be to go to university.
Yeah. A structured environment.
Yeah, further study. I mean, I'm the first person in my family to go to university.
Wow.
So it was all new territory for everyone. But like I said before, outside of NIDA and UOW in Wollongong, I mean, I don't even think I knew about QUT. I'd heard of WAPA and I'd heard of VCA, but the rumour was that they weren't really doing a great deal of acting stuff. So, like I said, I mean, for me it was like NIDA or nothing.
And did you even audition for the others, or?
No, I didn't audition for Wollongong.
You
I didn't
were
audition for anything.
guy,
So it was just like, well, this better work out because I don't have a plan B.
Yeah.
Who knows? If it didn't work out, I have absolutely no idea what I'd be doing.
Wow.
Could not tell you. There was no other notion of oh, maybe I'll do that then, that way. I would have been faced with, now what do I do?
But Wollongong was an option for you? You were saying?
Yeah, I remember there being a bit of discussion at school from teachers, and you know, you have those sort of university open days and things like that, of like, all right, well maybe I've heard Wollongong's got a good acting course there as well. But there was also Charles Sturt University too, the Wagga campus there, and I've got good friends who've gone through there, both through the acting stream and through their kind of technical production courses that they do there. And it was a reasonably solid course as well. So perhaps that could have been something that I would have considered as well.
Yeah, but it wasn't on your mind at the time.
No, not at all. I was all focused about those NIDA auditions.
So let's talk about the audition.
Great.
Going to that, because you only did one, right? You just got in straight off the bat.
Yes, I'm off my first attempt.
Yeah, which is very rare.
Yeah.
And you were very young, and they don't take very many youngies, but they did in your year. They had a couple of youngies in your year. I know a few of them. So traveling down. Yeah. That was, first of all, I want to know, because you were so set on this part. What was your preconceived notion? Did you just think you were going to get in? Were you like, were you nervous? Like, do you? Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Were you confident?
I still, no, not at all.
Yeah, okay.
I still get very nervous auditioning.
Yeah.
I really hate auditioning. And this was no exception, because it was the big one. You know, there was a lot of pressure that I was putting on myself to get into this, because it was something that I'd been working towards for the past, 5-6 years. And I thought this will determine the rest of my life. But what you got to understand too is that I'd been seeking out NIDA very proactively from the outset of me even knowing that it existed. As soon as I knew of NIDA, I was trying to do their short courses. As soon as I knew that they were touring out to regional areas, all right, I've got to go and do one.
And was that Wagga? They used to come to Wagga, did they?
Yeah, they used to go to Wagga, and I ended up doing one in Griffith as well.
Did they do audition focused ones? Like, did you do a couple
of
leading up?
There was an application process, but I don't think it was was.
Oh, sorry, I mean, did you do any, like, so leading up to the NIDA audition, did you do any to kind of prepare yourself? Like, did they have classes on audition technique, for instance?
I think they do. I didn't do
You
any.
didn't do them.
I wasn't doing any kind of audition prep. I was working very closely with my drama teacher.
And they knew the process that you'd be going into.
Well, yeah, he had a kind of notion, I guess, and he was really the most experienced director that I had access to.
Yeah.
But I had also done an open program production at NIDA the year before I got into the full-time course. So, you know, again, Dad and I jumped in the car, drove the 6 hours to Sydney, and auditioned for an open program production of A Midsummer Night's Dream that was going to be directed by Mark Gale, who was the head of the open program at the time, and Darren Gilshanen. And I got the part of Nick Bottom, one of the mechanicals who gets turned into a donkey. And I spent what I think would have been maybe 6 weeks, maybe 2 months, living here in Sydney on the UNSW campus, rehearsing every day, working with a whole bunch of actors, being directed by Darren.
Oh, wait, this is your year 12?
This is me in the, what must have been the summer holidays between year 11 and 12.
Yes, okay, wow.
Yeah, where I was up here doing Midsummer Night's Dream, and it was performed in the Playhouse at NIDA.
Wow, that's awesome.
So I was on cloud nine. I loved it. I was working with really great young actors. Darren Gilshanen, you know, fantastic comedy actor, and at NIDA, this place that I've always wanted to be.
Oh, that would have set the dream in motion, that's for sure.
For sure. And so it kind of gave me, I guess you sort of mentioned confidence, maybe subconsciously, it gave me at least a familiarity with the environment of like, okay, I know what the building looks like. I've performed in one of the theatres.
But there was no sense of walking in and being like, here I am.
No, I don't think so. Well, there was definitely
a
sense of like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right, this is the place. This is what it actually looks like.
Yeah, because I think the numbers these days are what, like 3,000 people audition and 18 get in? Does that sound right?
Yeah, we ended up having a class of 24.
Even more, yeah.
So directly after that production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, the actress that was playing Titania, who I played opposite of quite a bit, being Nick Bottom, she got into the full-time acting course. So there was a part of me going, all right,
she can do it.
I'm next.
Yeah.
Right? Luckily enough, I was actually given a scholarship from the NIDA Open program to return to NIDA 6 months later in the winter holidays to do a 2-week screen intensive course. And I was working with a number of screen practitioners, directors, writers, actors, and gaining, well, just doing scene work and working with cameras and a bit more kind of screen focused work. Which really came out of the blue, but again gave me this kind of added experience and just exposure to the NIDA environment. So by the time November rolled around and I sat my HSC exams and I was preparing the auditions for the full-time course, I'd already spent like 2.5-3 months of the past year at NIDA doing short courses, which I guess in a way settled the nerves a little bit.
Yeah.
And then it was just a matter of, well, all right, here's the big one. This is going to be 3 years of your life. This is the NIDA stamp of approval and a move to the big city.
So how did you find the audition process?
It was intense. It was definitely intense. And it was the first time where I had been involved in one of those, what I kind of thought at the time, those classic kind of movie audition moments where someone with a clipboard and a very severe face comes out and like calls out a whole bunch of names and says, you're all cut.
Absolutely.
Or thank you for your time, we won't be seeing you anymore. And like, oh, all right, that's brutal. And then you see about 15, 20 people just get up and walk out and go, well, that's it.
And it's so fast, yeah.
It is, it's so quick. And that was something that my dad would always go on about whenever we'd come up for a 5-minute audition or something like that. It's like, that was it? All right, let's turn around and go back again.
Oh, God. And would you stay down there a couple of days?
We were doing that.
Yeah.
We were doing that. There were days, particularly before NIDA, when I did have the agent for a little bit. I remember coming up here for a Shapes commercial. And like you drive 6 hours, you'd spend, and for a TVC too, those auditions are so fast. It was like 30 seconds in the room. Thanks very much. Bye. All right, well, we fuel up the car and turn around and go home.
Yeah.
Whereas with NIDA, because it was stretched out over a couple of days, I guess, hopefully, if you stayed in, you know, if they
Yes,
kept
that's the
asking
dream.
you back,
Yes.
it goes for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And we were staying in a hotel in Kensington and down the road from NIDA, and it was incredibly nerve-wracking, but also really thrilling, because being in a room full of people that really wanted to be there and that have obviously been working incredibly hard to be there, and just seeing great work in the room. Intimidating, because you've got the panel of the heads of NIDA. You've normally got the head of acting in the room, head of movement, head of voice, maybe one of the other acting teachers, a current student who's reading opposite you in the scene work, or they normally have someone stand in the room, so you've actually got someone to deliver your speeches to. And as the day progresses, you kind of shuffle through everyone, and you beat yourself up because you feel you're not as good as those people, or you get up and now it's time to do some movement work and you don't feel too good on your feet sometimes, or they were running us through improv exercises, which I loved, and that was kind of probably where I felt the most comfortable. And then we went in groups of sort of 20 from memory. You go through everyone. We did one go at our contemporary piece, and then we'd have a break. They'd come out and they'd say goodbye to a few people, and then I was still there. You go back in, you do your Shakespeare, go back out, get rid of a few more people, go back in, do it again with some notes, a bit more direction. Okay, cool, we'll see you tomorrow. And I think what ended up happening was that I was there for a couple of days, and then I went away again. They must have got me back for another round of callbacks. And then that was when they incorporated the whole sort of interview process, which really intimidated me probably more than anything. I was okay with getting up and performing, but I was a bit intimidated of like the kind of questionnaires of like, why do you think you're a good fit for NIDA? Or why do you think you're right at this point in time in your learning to come to NIDA? And how will you support yourself while you're here? These kind of very grown-up adult questions confronted a very idealistic, dreamy kind of actor of like, no, I just want to act.
Yeah, I'm just going to make it.
I'm just going to do it. So that kind of, that grounded me a little bit more in going, oh, okay, well, now as we get a little bit further down the road here, how will I kind of build a life for myself here, and can I handle the workload? And I think talked about the fact that they don't really take very many young people. Yeah. That was something that was constantly being said to me by other people, with well-intentioned, of like, hey, we don't want to see you get your heart broke kind of thing. And maybe from people that felt a little bit of resentment or envy or whatever as well. But, I was auditioning and, at 17.
I've definitely seen people get told, we love you, but you're too young.
Yeah.
Come back next year.
Yeah.
It's really common.
I was told that at my callback audition by the head of acting of NIDA. I was sitting in a room with two other fellas. It was myself, Brandon McClelland, another fabulous young actor, and a third young actor that had made it through. We were the last three for that entire day. Both Brandon and I were 17, and the other fellow was, I think, 19. He had a few years on us. And Tony Knight, the then head of acting, sat us all down and gave us some wonderful feedback and some wonderful praise, but said to me, you're too young and you're probably not going to get in this year. And then a month later, I got a phone call saying that I got in. So I don't know what happened. But for that, I don't know, for whatever reason, myself and that fabulous young actor, Brandon McClelland, got in. And I think two other ladies got in that were all under 18.
Wow, 4 of you, yeah.
Yeah. And then there was another handful of them that were still 18, 19 as well. We were a very young year.
Yeah.
Which just baffled me, because when I turned up and found that out, I was like, what's everyone talking about?
Yeah. They've all lied to me
Yeah,
sometimes.
because everyone was like, no, they like to take people who are in their
absolutely.
mid-20s or kind of, a bit more life experience. This whole idea of life experience, you need more life experience. NIDA's funny in that sense, and sort of what I came to realise is that there's a lot more going on there than just, people looking at your age. I think what concerns, not to put words in NIDA's mouth, but what I think their main concerns are, at least this was an example with me, when it came to that interview process, was like, will you keep working after 3:30? If we're going to get a whole bunch of, fresh out of high school kids, they're used to the bell going at 3:30 in the afternoon. Those classes, you're on campus at night until 6 at night.
Yeah.
11 or 12 at night during productions. Do you have the stamina? Do you have the endurance? Do you have the focus to deliver every single day? It's Monday to Friday.
Emotional maturity.
9 to
all
6.
of that.
You're dealing with all of these different, you're dealing with complex characters, complex scenes, different personalities and people within your year group, within the staffing, faculty, all of those sort of demands. Living away from home for the first time in my case, to a certain extent. So there is a lot going on, and not to forget that they're also programming their plays. So they're also casting as they're auditioning for the full-time course. They're going, okay, well, if we want to do Othello as one of the second-year Shakespeare plays, who's our Othello? Who could be our Iago?
Because I've heard rumours that they do that, but I wasn't sure if that's true.
Well,
but you think it is?
I think it has to be. I think it has to be, because they're getting licenses for all of those plays. They're gearing up. They have to be thinking of those programs at least a year, if not 2, in advance. So I'm sure it wouldn't be the sole driving force of their selection process, but it would play. I'm sure, no doubt. Then there was the interesting thing too that I heard get mentioned a little bit in the audition process, was like those people that felt they had to audition for NIDA when they were already in the industry. People that had agents, people that had worked professionally before.
Yeah, I saw that a lot at Whopper as well.
Yeah. Of like, well, you're kind of already there, so why do you feel like you need to shut yourself away, so to speak, for 3 years? Some people need it, some people don't, but I guess that's just to say that everyone's path is different.
Yeah.
And for this particular time, for whatever reason, 17-year-old Jake was right.
Yes.
And that worked. And our younger year worked.
Yes.
For whatever reason. But I am glad that I went as young as I did. I thought, because I had heard doing those NIDA short courses in the lead up to NIDA, there was an acting tutor that was working there at the time who had gone through NIDA himself in the full-time acting course as a young person. I think he was about 18 as well, and he had reservations and regrets about that. Of like, I felt like I was too young. I didn't. I didn't. Not to say that I felt I was, mature and all that kind of stuff. I just felt that I went through there at the right time.
Yeah.
I did a lot of growing up, living away from home, finding my own feet, finding my own voice. I felt that I was a kind of malleable student. I felt like I could pick up new things quickly, whereas some of the older students were a bit kind of stuck in their ways a little bit. They were a bit harder to kind of mould and move around. And
that's certainly been one of the things that I think I've even talked about with... I went a year later to Whopper. I took a year off, and a lot of people in that time told me it's good to go later because you won't just take in everything the acting teachers say. You'll pick and choose, and you'll say, no, that's not for me. But when you're so young, it's like everything you say must be...
Or it's all gospel.
Yeah, it's all gospel, exactly. But,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a really great thing to that too. You will give everything a shot genuinely. You won't shut yourself up to it.
Yeah. it's a fine balance. And I have a feeling that NIDA kind of saw that in our year, maybe as a bit of an experiment of going, well, hang on, if we get younger people in here, we know that they're more responsive to some of the techniques that we teach here, and that by the time they graduate, I was 21. It's like you can go out and, not to say that your career's over by the time you get to 30, but the more time you have, the more likelihood you've got of, planting seeds and kind of growing good crops, so to speak. So
how did you find your time at NIDA? So you really enjoyed it?
I did, and I do reflect on my time at NIDA quite a bit, but I still feel like I did enjoy it. You're probably picking up on some hesitancy, and I think I'd be lying if I said that there wasn't, whether or not it was a good thing to do, because nowadays I kind of find myself, I don't know, throwing a lot of it away, or not even remembering a great deal of it.
I mean, a lot of people say you go to, and I believe this, that you go to university to learn how to learn.
Yeah.
And it's that life lesson, and you can just, it's not so much about taking those
what
ideas
it actually is. But I think there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, for me, I met one of my great creative partners, Brandon, and we've been working together constantly since NIDA, on and off.
And you guys have a production company now, which we'll have to talk about.
That's right.
Well.
Creating our own stuff together.
Yeah.
So I think it's wonderful for that, because you're surrounded by like-minded people equally as passionate, which is a wonderful thing to be a part of. Not just within the acting stream either. I got to say, working with and collaborating with and getting to know people in other disciplines, the production students, the design students and things like that, I still cross paths with so many people that were in my year at NIDA that weren't in the acting stream.
I think Kip Williams was going through the
Yeah.
directing program now.
He was doing his masters while we were there.
Yeah, amazing.
And you never really know where people are going to end up either. Like, I know production students that were learning about stage management that are now producing musicals. So it's like you just don't know where people are going to end up too. So the network of people that you can begin to create there in the drama school is like that. That's something of really great benefit, because so much of this industry is based on who you know and those sort of teams of people and collaborations. It's a collaborative kind of process. The academic side means nothing. Yeah.
And it didn't for you in school either.
It didn't for me in school either, and it was proved again at NIDA. The whole idea of getting a degree, a piece of paper, honestly, that piece of paper is framed and in a bottom drawer in my house somewhere. Like, I don't know. I don't use it. I don't get it out to show people. I don't take it to auditions with me. But
do you think having the little word NIDA on your resume helps? Like, do you think that the name of the place means something?
Yeah. I think that's probably one of the biggest questions I'm still trying to figure out, is whether or not the stamp of approval from NIDA still carries the same amount of weight. I think it does. In my case, I think it does, because there's specific examples where I've leveraged that experience of going to NIDA after my training in creating my own work. That's helped legitimize the project.
Yes.
This
even just having to, like I said, we were talking about those numbers for 3,024 get in. Like, even just being chosen for it, whether or not even beside the training, that is a sort of stamp of approval, I think.
That's right. And I know when I talk to people that are outside of the arts, particularly in the business world, where you kind of tell that version of the story of how many people got in and kind of the integrity of the place, who else went there, and all those kinds of things, people start to pay attention. Not that that's the only reason why you should go to NIDA, but I do still think that, well, at least in my case, it helped. Whether or not it still does, I don't know, because there's certainly some fantastic actors that are out there that didn't go to NIDA and that are having wonderful careers, and there are people that did go to NIDA that aren't. There's so many factors at play.
What were the numbers we were discussing, which were you know, in a typical year it would be 1 in 5 would be working 5 years later?
We were told while we were there that after 5 years, 5 of you of 24 will still be working as actors. In 10 years, 1 of you.
And how many years on are you?
We're 8 years, going on 9 years, so we're getting close.
You're gonna be that last one, buddy.
I'm gonna hang in there. But the wonderful thing about our year, though, is that almost half our year is still working.
But even then, like that's, and I know your year. I know it was a very talented year, and even then half. So I guess it is a point
Even
of saying that it does not mean you're going to have a career in the arts.
No, that's right, and it shouldn't be expected.
Yes.
It should not be expected. That was something that was reinforced in us of like, look, just because you're here doesn't give you some free ride.
Yes.
It's still going to be a really hard slog to establish yourself and build a career in this very competitive industry. I really got a lot out of talking about the academic side though, and only talking about this recently too. I actually did really get quite a bit out of the lectures and tutorials and discussions that were going on at NIDA in those classes. Because, 17-year-old young country boy, I was not really exposed to a great deal of theatre or different disciplines within the arts entertainment industry. So, learning about arts history, learning about different techniques and different practitioners and those kind of what I'd come to learn to be the pillars of or the canon of humans' connection to art and performance was really eye-opening to me.
Do you use any of them still? Those theorists and techniques? Have you carried any of those with you?
No. I mean, look, if you really think about it, I'm sure I'm using Stanislavski's acting technique, but
on a subconscious level, maybe.
I don't know. And this is this whole thing of like, unlearning or kind of getting out of your own way. It's it's a really difficult thing for me to talk about because I feel like it's so personal and so it's not a tangible thing. I find myself to be a very technical actor, but I don't. That being said, I don't do a great deal of technical work. I'm not there I don't do a lot of paperwork, I don't lord over scripts, and maybe I should, I don't know, but I find most of the time it's a lot simpler than it actually is. But that's the weird contradiction. It's like, well, why have I spent the past almost decade, certainly more if you include, my younger years doing musicals and stuff as a kid in classes, but it's like, why have I dedicated all of this time to learning all of this information if I'm not going to actually use it? I'm actually doing the opposite. I'm trying to forget about it. Yeah. But that's just the weird contradiction, I think, of acting, of performing. Of like, it is mostly just kind of getting out of your own way. I will say that something that I was aware of at NIDA, but I don't think I truly appreciated was it really is a safety net. We've talked about safety nets before, how I feel about them. I don't like them. But
maybe you needed one.
Maybe I needed one. But what I mean by that is that it was a place for us to fail. And it was always this kind of running thing that one of our acting tutors would always say to us was, fail gloriously. Which, it's like you can take risks here that maybe necessarily you can't take professionally. But for a young actor that was still trying to find his voice and find out what kind of actor he is, what kind of actor he wants to be, what my tastes are, what my process is, you could try stuff. Yeah. I think I probably could have done more of that. Looking back, I think, you're really quite protected. So you can be bold, and I know they're kind of cliched sort of soundbite words, but it's only through failing that you really grow, sort of thing. Absolutely. So it's like, why not use that time to do that? I think that's one of the biggest benefits of studying.
Yes.
Just allowing yourself that time. There are still times where I long for days of, rolling around on the floor in a room with music playing and going on some kind of weird movement trance. And people you look back on that and it's like, how is that useful? How are you useful? But there is something about just kind of exploring and playing.
Absolutely.
Because it's very easy to get caught up in the corporate sort of business side of the industry. Once you get out of places like that, I think you're always like, oh, it's always about money, or it's always about contacts and networking. It's what happened to just creating cool stuff.
Yeah.
No, I really got a lot out of it, and out of drama school, and I was lucky enough to work with some really great directors and work on some really great plays. I was fortunate to play Richard III, which you talked about, and not that I knew what I was doing at all. A 19-year-old probably shouldn't play Richard III. It's like you're not really ready to play that part. But it was a great experience to do. It was wonderful.
Absolutely. Is it still something that do you still really remember that experience? Is that something you hold with you? That experience?
Yeah.
Because that would have been huge as a 19-year-old to get that opportunity.
Oh yeah. Oh, it was daunting. It was awful. It was a really. It was. I mean, I look back on it now, but it was. It was rough. It was a rough kind of show. It was daunting looking at the size of that script, knowing that 80% of it is you or something.
Is that one you'd like to have a second run of?
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I would. I'd
Yeah.
love to have a second go at it, but not until I'm maybe at least 40.
Okay. All right. We'll be here.
Yeah.
We'll be waiting.
I'll come back when I'm 40. I'll let you know how it went.
So let's talk about the post-NIDA years.
Sure.
So as we've talked about, a few times in this, obviously going to NIDA does not mean that you'll do things out of NIDA. So what year did you graduate NIDA?
I graduated in 2012.
2012, and then you got home and away in 2013. So that's not a very big
correct.
gap.
No.
That was very quick.
No.
Was there things going on in that year before that?
I was very fortunate. I kind of came out of the gates pretty quick.
It's the end of 2012 that you graduate too, isn't it?
That's right.
Right.
That's right. We graduated.
Yeah.
Yes. So we technically finished in the November of 2012.
And then do you remember what month you got home and away?
Well, prior to that, I did my first feature film. I went back to Wagga to shoot Backyard Ashes.
Prior to home and away or prior to graduating?
Prior to home and away.
Yes, okay.
So towards the end of graduating, I was already in talks with the director of that feature film because he was a director of the musicals that I was doing in Wagga growing up. And he had gone to NIDA a few years prior to do the director's course. And he went through that year and came out the other side and was working with the Sydney Theatre Company and had been developing a film script that he wanted to take back to his hometown of Wagga and make.
So this wasn't someone you were connected with pre-NIDA?
This is.
Yes.
Mark Rental is his name.
Yes.
And he was the theatre director in Wagga.
Yeah.
Who then went to NIDA.
And was it at NIDA while you were at NIDA?
No, we just missed each other because I think the directing course was only 12 months.
Yes.
So they went through directors a lot quicker than they did actors. And there was a little part in that for me, which was very nice of him. So I graduated in November, and throughout December of 2012, I was back in Wagga shooting that feature. In amongst all of that, in the lead up to graduating and towards the end of 2012, I myself was developing a script for a documentary that I was developing for my hometown of Leeton because it was celebrating its centenary. It was turning 100 years old and the local Rotary clubs wanted to do something to commemorate that. So they basically commissioned me to write, produce, direct, and essentially narrate this, what would eventually be a feature-length documentary about the formation and foundation of our hometown. So, graduate NIDA, feature film. We start off the next year shooting over the course of a month the documentary about my hometown. And throughout the filming of that, I'm auditioning for Home and Away.
Wow. So it was really non-stop for you.
Didn't stop.
Yeah.
Didn't stop. And by the time we premiered the documentary in the April of 2013, I had just started shooting Home and Away.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So it was pretty quick.
And so during Nina, you were already interested in writing as well? That was something that you...
Yeah, I mean, I was interested in, I guess, making my own stuff.
Yeah. And you'd done a government inspector while you were at Nina too, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we should briefly mention that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that was with Brandon, and that was really the first kind of collaboration that we did together.
And that went to Leiden, didn't it?
It did, yeah. We took it back to Leiden, to the Roxy Theatre there. We performed over a weekend there, and then we toured it to Wagga and performed there as well. And that was my first go at producing, really. You know, Brandon and I both produced it. We got the playwright himself to come down and direct the play from Sydney. We brought with us some technicians from NIDA that we'd been working with. And, you know, we opened to a sellout house. We sold out a 700-seat theatre in regional New South Wales with a play with 2 people in it.
Wow.
Yeah, this hilarious comedy called The Government Inspector, based on the Russian play by Nikolai Gogol. And, you know, that was great fun, but that's always been a side to me of like, of doing my own thing. Of like, I'm always, that's the bug for me. Of like, I'm not one to sit around and kind of wait for something to happen. I'm going to make something, you know? So,
I do apologise for the sound. We're in a very creative hub here, so you may hear, our audience may hear some fun creative sounds happening on the outside. We appreciate that.
Art's getting made.
Art's getting made here, that's right.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm always one to kind of make stuff, which is sort of how the documentary about Leiden came about as well. And always, I guess because I've had that support back home too, there's lots of people that are willing to collaborate and come on board with projects and things like that. How
important do you think it is for, if you are looking at a performing arts career, like how much do you think that is a really important part of it, to be versatile, to be able to create your own work? What do you account to that to be?
In my experience, yes, 100%. I wouldn't be in the position that I am now had I not created my own work.
And that is someone, you know, you got Home and Away straight out of, you know, that you just fell into that almost, I
totally.
suppose.
And, I mean, and they're the things that are out of your control.
Yeah.
You know? I don't believe that you can build a career like that. Not in this country.
Yeah.
Maybe in America, because of the sheer amount of projects that are getting made there. But we're a much smaller industry here.
Yeah.
And I think creatives in general have to be diverse, which is why you find actors who write, or, you know, directors that are producing their own stuff or writing as well. You know, designers and technicians have multidisciplinarians, because that's how you survive.
Yeah.
Really, when it comes down to it. And for me, it's an opportunity to challenge myself, because I can put myself in roles that I wouldn't necessarily be cast in.
Yeah.
Or I hear a wonderful story, or there's a particular question I want to explore, or landscape I want to explore. You know, why not make a film about it? Why not make a play about it? And work with your mates. It's a way to build that network. You know, I think that's another thing that's been a big component to me building my career, is not being afraid to talk to people and reaching out however you feel necessary, however you feel appropriate, to other directors or other producers, other actors, to get knowledge, get experience.
Do you think there was a part of 17-year-old Jake who already had that bug, that I want to make my own work bug? Or do you think that's something that really developed?
For sure. I think because it started there.
Yeah.
You know, I was already putting on shows in my living room. I was
Yeah.
already making short films at
Yeah.
home, you know. I just didn't really have anyone else to do it with.
Yeah.
So I was forcing my siblings to do it.
Yeah.
Or, you know, forcing my parents to sit through some bizarre show, some bizarre monologue about a character I'd made up. I was already making stuff. And I think, you know, if I sit in a room long enough, I'm going to make something.
Yeah.
So, which is kind of maybe one of the reasons why I feel I don't need a safety net. Because I know, even if that phone doesn't ring from my agent saying, oh, Marvel's calling, they want you to be Spider-Man.
It'll happen, Jake.
It will one day. You know, even if those wonderful calls, like Home and Away, don't happen, I'm still going to have a career.
Yes.
Because I'm in control of it.
Yes.
I'm going to go and make something. And I, thankfully, have the knowledge and the skills and the contacts to make something happen. But the only way you find that out is by actually doing it.
Yeah.
And it gets easier over time. Every project I've done has been a massive learning curve.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's not easy. Certainly tests you, and you're constantly going, do I really want this? Why do I really want this? But at the end of the day, I love it. So look, for me, from my experience, there may be people out there that are very lucky enough to have careers just, you know, by way of, hi, they want you for this. Yep, great. All right, I'll do that. And they go from job to job to job to job. I think it's very hard to do that here in Australia.
Absolutely. So I would say, two amazing things that you did, I think, to support yourself in that transition and making this happen for you was writing your own work and producing it and putting those hats on, and also using your community, like utilising that community you did have in Leeton. And you know, you've taken so much work back there. That's been a huge base for you. You've done films back there too, haven't you?
Yeah. 2018, I took a short film back there. You know, we raised $50,000 to produce this 15-minute short film. We had people flying from all over the country. We had people that were working on this that were in Western Australia, in the Gold Coast, down from Melbourne, here in Sydney. And they all kind of descended on this little country town, and we shot this kind of, you know, gruesome Aussie Western on a sheep farm 40 minutes out of town. And the whole town came alive. And I felt that too when I was doing Backyard Ashes with Mark back in Wagga.
Yes.
The very first job that I did. That was a feature film. It was his first feature film. They made it for, you know, a few $100,000. It was done on a shoestring. But you saw communities like that completely galvanise and really want to support their own. And I'm certainly finding that now. I'm spending a little bit more time going back home and working with that theatre, you know, from my childhood, and building programs for people and trying to create content and pass down skills to enable people to make their own stuff. Because I think it's such an exciting time now where technology in a way is making the industry more democratic and more people have access to stuff now where maybe necessarily you don't need to go to a NIDA, you know. Maybe you just need a camera and a few mates and you can start a YouTube channel, or you can create a really cool short film that gets into a festival somewhere. Either way, it's through experience. And it's all in the doing, but you've just got to keep doing.
And we're meant to be, you know, we call the drama, it's an art form. We have to be creative. We have to think outside the box and be versatile and adapt.
100%. Because I mean, at least from an acting perspective, because I'm not a trained writer. I'm not a very experienced writer. I just have ideas and I put them down. But at least from an acting perspective, there's so much of what we do that isn't up to us. You know, it all comes down to, which can get you down, because you go, well, what else do you want me to do? You know, I've gone to NIDA, I've done that short film, I've put on that play, I've done this, why aren't I being cast in all of these wonderful things? But there's just so much that's out of your control. I mean, I spent some wonderful time with a casting director here in Sydney, casting a film. I was reading opposite all of these wonderful actors that that she was auditioning for the part, and it was a great opportunity for me to just observe the other side of that process. I'm so used to walking into the room, spending 5 seconds there, hi, how are you, do my scene and walk out. I saw all of the conversations that happen after the actor leaves.
Yes.
And I asked her, I was like, what are you looking for? I mean, how do you actually make these decisions? And she said to me, all I look for is an attitude. I'm just looking for an attitude that matches the character and what we're looking for. And people either have it or they don't.
Wow.
You know, and a perfect example of that was there was a young fella came through. He was fresh out of drama school. He looked like a movie star. You know, we saw it. She remarked on it. He was another Hemsworth, but he didn't get the part because they were looking for someone who was dark and broody and needed to have dark hair and dark eyes, because the lead character opposite that character was blonde hair and blue eyes, like he was. So he kept, like, little stuff like that. We were actually having conversations about that. So, you know, there's all of those things at play. So I guess in a way, for me to get more control back of my own career, I've really embraced creating my own stuff, because I'm not dependent on all of these other powers at play. Oh, he's not tall enough, he hasn't got blue eyes, doesn't have the right attitude for that, or whatever it might be. If I've got a project that I want to do, that I want to see come to life, and I've got something to say about it, then I'm just going to go out and do it. I'm not going to wait for someone to give me that permission to do that. Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to wrap up now.
Dear.
So do you have any last pieces of advice or words of wisdom for any emerging actors out there who are hoping to enter this crazy whirlwind of an industry?
I mean, I don't think I'm in a position to be giving out advice. I mean, I'm still very young. I'm still figuring all of this out for myself. But I will say that it is different for everyone, and there's no right way about it. Drama school might be right for you. Starting a YouTube channel might be right for you. But it's all different. The only thing I would say is do your best to give yourself as many opportunities as you can. Put yourself in the right kind of place. Surround yourself with good people and educate yourself. I think it's really important for artists to be aware of the world and aware of history. You know, go and read, go and watch TED Talks and interviews, and, you know, give yourself life experiences. A little anecdote. When I first left NIDA, and all through my youth, it was like acting is the be-all and end-all. That's who I am. I was defined by it. And as I started working as an actor and going into all of these auditions, you'd go in to the casting director and you'd have to fill out a form with, like, your height and everything like that, who your agent was. Down the bottom, there'd normally be a little line or a box that said, other interests. And I could never fill it. Because it was just all acting for me. My interest is acting. Acting's everything. I couldn't put anything. No hobbies, no sports, nothing. And I very quickly realised that I must be an incredibly boring person. How terrible. I had nothing to draw on. It's like, so I would say have hobbies.
Yeah.
Honestly, have interests. Because it's all work. That's one of the things that I loved about one of our acting teachers. It's like, you can go to the movies, you can go to the theatre, and it's work. But you can go and climb a mountain, or you can go and sail a ship, or you can go camping and trekking, or you can, you know, do all of this amazing stuff. And it's really all still work. Because it's fueling your taste, and it's fueling your creativity and what you can draw on as a performer, as a writer, as any kind of creator. So just live a full life. Have hobbies, have other interests, because it's all work. But just enjoy it. And if it's not fun, it's not worth it.
Some great, beautiful parting words. Thank you very much, Jake Speer,
Thank
for
you.
being here on our very first episode of Ask an Actor.
It's an honour.
And I think we only got through half what we wanted to talk about, because we'd love to hear about your formative, your more recent years as well,
Yes.
actually, as well. But we'll have to get you back in.
We must. Too much to talk about.
That's right. That's right. Always good to leave it a cliffhanger as well.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Leave them wanting more.
Thank you, Jake.
Thank you.